Hi class. Today we're going to continue on with our lessons in communication. And so for the agenda today, we're going to debrief the Amy Cuddy body language TED Talk that you watched, and then we're going to go through some communication, and then I'm going to assign you some readings to do. So to debrief the Amy Cuddy talk, we want to kind of discover, like, what do you actually believe, right? So lots of you have been tasked to do power poses on your own and to see how it maybe makes you feel, and to see actually does this thing that she talks about work. And so there's going to be two camps, and some people in the middle, like, very skeptical. This doesn't actually work. I don't believe in it. And then the others were, wow, this is something that I want to do, and I'm going to continue to try to do. So the question is, one, do you believe in the actual scientific evidence that she presents? Like, this is actually chemical reactions in your brain that are going to help you change how you feel and how you react and how you display yourself, or you don't believe in that, right? So one, if you do believe in that, then there's a little bit less argument. It's more, do you believe that that amount of chemical change is going to matter? And if you don't believe in it, then you don't believe in it, and you don't think it's going to matter necessarily. So it's about trying to getting to a place where maybe it's something that can help, right? Versus just being skeptical about it, right? So if it is something that you think might help you, even a remote little chance that it could help you in terms of your ability to do things and communicate with people and to communicate with yourself, then why not try to implement some of these strategies, power poses, into your daily life or into your evaluative situations, right? So you want to make sure, go back and take a look at the video, see what she says. Are these things something that might have some weight, right? If you think about yourself and think about what you do in competitive scenarios, as she described, you actually already do many of these things subconsciously, right? Without thinking about them, without purposefully doing them, but your body does them to generate some sort of kind of emotional or excitement or some kind of response to make you do better, or to just lift you to a level where you want to be lifted to, right? So I just want you to try it and to keep an open mind with it, and just to see what we think might be taking place. So we've taken our conversations from how do you communicate to others, how do you communicate to yourself, and how do even you receiving communication. And so now we want to take it to a point where we're trying to help others communicate better, and that will be with feedback. So if you are communicating with people, and if you're trying to help someone do things differently, communicate better, or just to help them communicate with you, you need to give them constructive feedback. And so this feedback is the process of telling someone else how you feel about something that person did or said to you, okay? You want to let them know, and you want to help them either change their delivery or do something to make that communication better. Okay, and so that's the feedback. And so we want to know, like, what is the best feedback? And so there are a few things that you want to ensure that you do when feedback happens. So one, be direct. No point beating around the bush. You want to tell them directly what's going on, what you think, what you feel, right? Direct doesn't mean offensive. Direct doesn't mean that you are being rude. Direct means that you are getting straight to the point, right? You don't need to sugarcoat things. We're not children. We're not so young that we can't take feedback. You should welcome feedback if it's going to help you, right? So being direct about something should be appreciated by all. You're saving time. You're not wasting your breath on saying something, and someone else is not just kind of sifting through the sugary commentary, right? So be direct. Two, be very specific. You want to tell them very directly and then very specifically what it is that maybe they did wrong, or what it is that they could improve, or what it is that kind of missed the mark, right? There's no point in just generalizing a statement, because it's very hard to improve a generalization. It's very much easier to improve a specific thing that you can hone in on and identify. 3, be mindful of timing. You need to give your feedback ideally as quickly as possible. Okay, so it's not the case where if something bad happens that you necessarily want to tell them right away, because they might not be in the mind space to receive the feedback, because they may know that they've done something wrong or something didn't go well in a speech or whatnot. But if you wait too long, the incident is out of memory. The emotion is totally gone, and they might not take the feedback as well because they thought their memory of the incident has changed, right? They don't remember it have bombing so badly. So you have to weigh that timing, that you want to be as fast as possible while giving them space to, I guess, live in the moment a little bit and not to get it right away. But you want to let them know so they can improve on it and fix it and feel what's happened, right? Think of it another way. Like, think of if you have a pet or a dog. If you come home and you find something that happened, your dog chewed on something, but they might have chewed on it in the morning, right? It's very difficult to give them punishment, 7 hours later, because the dog has forgotten what they've done. It's much more important to give them the feedback right away, and so they can connect the two pieces, right? They can connect what they did wrong with the feedback that they're getting, right? So timing matters in terms of the impact of the feedback that you're giving the individual. Validity, right? So this is extraordinarily important. Make sure that what you're saying is valid and relevant and important, right? So often you might get into an argument with a friend or with your parent or whomever, and you'll be discussing something. And then out of left field, that person or you will say, well, you did this last time and that made me upset, or something like that. Bringing in random facts or unrelated incidents to someone to either criticize or to put them down or whatnot. Though that information is not valid to the point that's being made, right? It's not valid to the feedback or the communication that is being given, right? So ensure that what you are saying is valid to this person and to what you are trying to improve in them. Remember, this is called constructive feedback. You're trying to make them and help them do better, not just trying to pick them apart for various things. 5, small doses. Okay, you need to give them feedback in small doses. You can't sit someone down and relay 12 different things that they did wrong. You can't berate someone and browbeat them with tons and tons of things that they need to improve on tomorrow, right? That's not going to be effective, right? If you all think about yourselves, like for myself, I really enjoy golfing. I'm not very good, but there are many, many small components part of your golf swing or your setup and all this kind of stuff. And if someone tries to help me improve, they might tell me to change my grip, to change my feet, to change my posture, to change all these different things. I can't hope to fix them all in the same moment. What's best is that if that individual gives me one piece of feedback to start with, right? Fix this about your grip, and then practice that. Try to fix that part, and then try to fix the next piece after you've successfully fixed the previous, right? Small doses of feedback work best because an individual can't possibly synthesize everything if it's too much. And so using communication and making someone and helping someone to improve is about how they communicate, but also through the use of communication channels. So we talked about channels before briefly, and so we talked about what's a good channel, what's a bad channel, and it's not good to think of it in terms of good and bad channels. Channels are just different. Channels are just different ways to communicate different pieces of information. There are bad channels for certain things, while those same channels could be good for other things, right? So you have to be able to pick the right channel for the right moment and for the right message and for the right receiver, right? If you want to communicate with your parents versus your friends and the same type of message, the channel you might use may be different because of the two people, right? So again, it's, while simple to comprehend in terms of what is a channel, possibly a bit more complex to figure out what's the best channel to use. So if you think about what can the channel do, you're talking about maybe richness of channel. So capacity richness is the capacity of a communication channel to effectively carry the information. What can this channel do? How rich is this channel? right? What kind of information can be relayed by this channel? And some pieces of information, some forms of communication require high richness, while some forms require low richness. And so low richness channels are fairly impersonal, fairly one way, fairly fast. Okay, think of an email or think of a text message, right? You're sending a message, it's going to someone, it's virtually instantaneous, and it's one way, right? You are just sending data to someone that they're going to receive and interpret on their own, right? You're not beside them to help them interpret. You're not there to give them body language. They're just receiving some piece of data from you. Why are these channels good? Because they're fast, right? Why are these channels good? Because you can send the same piece of information to many, many, many people, right? Good for impersonal kinds of things. Good for relaying of information, right? Why are they bad? They're not good at relaying emotion, right? They're not good at relaying a personalized message, right? So for you to use a low richness channel like a text message doesn't mean it's good or bad. It means you need to use it for certain types of communication, right? Post-it notes are fairly passive aggressive, right? So I'll give you an example. In my life in university, I lived with 3 other guys in like an apartment style place, and so we all had our tasks. And so one of my one of my friends was in charge of cleaning this portion of our home or our apartment. And so another one of my roommates decided to post a post-it note, very, very passive aggressive, clean up your stuff, clean up your area, whatever, and just posted it on his door, right? There was no communication, there was no depth of communication. It was very, very impersonal, very one way, very quick. And so my friend got that, he saw it, he got pissed off, and he posted his own post-it note on my other friend's area, right? And so things were being communicated, emotion wasn't being communicated, there was no room for dialogue. It just became a thing because of the richness of the communication channel, right? It could have been simply done in a conversation without the headache, without the drama. Versus high richness, personal, two-way, yet slow, like a telephone conversation, like an in-person, face-to-face meeting, right? Very good because you can relay lots and lots of information, you can relay emotion, you can relay and get responses and feedback in a moment, but it requires tons and tons of time. And it is slow. It requires you to set up meetings and stuff like that. So those kinds of things are very, very good for certain types of communication, yet not good for others, right? You may have seen those memes, or you may have seen various things where it says, this meeting could have been an email, right? No one wants to be in an unnecessary meeting when all you're communicating is data, right? If it's just data you want me to know, send me an email, I'll read it, and then we're done, versus making me come to a 2-hour meeting for no reason, okay? So the channel isn't good or bad, but the channel could be good or bad for a specific type of communication. That's the key. So the next thing we would want to talk about effective communication is how you manage people. And so we've been kind of general in terms of what is good communication, how do you communicate well. And so we're in a business leadership class, and so we want to kind of relate this back to, as a leader, as a manager, how can you communicate with your colleagues, your employees, and your peers, right? And so one method that we want to talk about is interactive management, right? Management by wandering around or by walking around. And so if I'm in the classroom and I'm trying to manage you, right? I can stand at the very front of the class and just talk to you the whole time. And that's going to communicate certain types of things. But I can also manage by talking and walking, right? Being in your space, walking to your desk if you're in an office, but walking to other people's cubicles, right? It affords the people the opportunity to talk with you, to communicate with you. It also establishes your presence amongst the people, right? Even right now, if I walked through your desks, people on their phones are going to put their phones down as I approach them, and I don't even have to say anything. I just have to have a presence there that will ensure that you do something. It's just communicating information to you that, I see it, I'm there, I'm present, and you can't ignore me, right? So you want to walk through your building, your staff, your people, right? You want to meet and talk with people at all levels of your organization. We don't want leaders and managers up in their ivory tower in their office and just sitting there all the time, not communicating with their workers. That is not good management, right? By walking around, you're able to communicate face to face with people, right? We don't want to always send emails, right? They want to put a face to a message. They want to be allowed to have feedback, right? That way you're presenting yourself as someone that can be approached, right? It breaks down barriers. It brings you down to a specific level where they feel comfortable talking to you versus going into your office, which is an uncomfortable, almost foreign space where you are, as an employee, at the disadvantage in the boss's office. Whereas if the boss comes to your place of work, you feel more comfortable, right? So management by wandering around or by walking around is very effective as a very simple procedure that lots of managers and business operators do. Some other strategies: open office hours, online discussions, employee meetings. All these things encourage your employees to give you feedback as the manager, right? Oftentimes, when you think about workplace environments and workplace dynamics, it's always the manager or the leader relaying information to the people. And that's foolhardy in terms of if it's only one way all the time. You need to want to have feedback from your people up to management level, right? You want to encourage them to come talk to you. You want to encourage your people to have discussion about what's happening in your business. Because ultimately, that's how your business will improve. That's how your business will change, and that's how your organization can grow stronger and better and be able to adapt with changing times. And if you don't do that, ultimately businesses will fail. And we're going to explore that problem a little bit later in the course. But getting feedback from your employees is hugely important. Feedback should come from all directions: up, top, down, bottom up, from the middle, everywhere. Okay? So these are things that the manager can do and can establish just with their physical presence and their availability. The next thing is actual design elements. So proxemics and space design. So in your classrooms, they will all be designed in specific ways, right, to ensure a specific form of communication and interaction. And so during COVID time, all the student desks are separated by as much space as possible because we don't want interaction, right? But in normal workplace culture, that's not a very good design, right? So in normal times, workplaces have structures where there are pods of desks, there are cubicles, and even in school places, desks might be arranged differently than just individual desks in rows, right? We all know that that does not help for interaction, right? So the way you design the architecture of your office building or of your workspaces is very, very important to encourage collaboration, to encourage how people interact, right? So you may have seen some teachers in the school have desks, little platforms on top of their desks where their computers can go up, where they can stand up and work. So that's part of design, right? So I'll give you an example. I have a friend who works in real estate, and so he's been going up through the ranks of his company, and so he got promoted to a director position. And so he had a team of workers, employees that they all worked for him and do different parts of the job. And so he was given this nice corner office, and his team were in the cubicle, the bullpen area where all the workers go. And so they were, down the hall in this space. And so my friend, he goes in there, he sees what's the design and set up, and so he just told the boss, he's like, look, I want that cubicle. And so his employees, there are 4 of them, and so there was a bullpen area. I think there were probably 6 cubicles there. And so he said, I want one of these cubicles, and the rest of his team was there. And so my friend decided to work most of his daily stuff in that cubicle beside his workers, beside his employees. And obviously, he has his office to go do meetings and to do other things where he needed a bit more privacy, a bit more kind of space to kind of think quietly and whatnot. But he chose to be amongst his people. That helps communication. It helps flow of information. It's more efficient. And so understanding, without having studying this in school or whatnot, I didn't tell him about this, but he understood just naturally what was better for him and his people, what's better for his communication, what's better for their efficiency and their productivity and their ability to perform well, right? So understanding that how you design your space is going to change how efficient and how effective you are in that space. The next point is technology utilization, and so of course communication is changing with technology, and so I think you're all too young to really know the company BlackBerry that well. It used to be called RIM, or Research in Motion. When I first started my job in finance, I worked in finance for a few years. I got what was called the BlackBerry. My BlackBerry was actually blue in color. And so it was a device that I could check my work email, and it was attached to my hip. It was also a cell phone. It was also a phone. That meant that I could read my news, I could receive my emails 24/7. I was accessible all the time. So the speed of communication for me was extraordinarily faster. So my work gave me this device. And so, you know what, it's great in terms of my access to my work. However, not ideal for my boss to be able to access me, right? So he knows that I have this device, and he knows that at any point in time he can message me, and I was available, right? So technology has changed how we communicate, and will continue to change how we communicate, right? Think about your cell phone, think about online sharing documents that we use. All these types of things are changing our methodology, and so you may encounter people who resist change of technology, or don't want to use pen and paper, or don't want to use tablets and stylus pens, and think pen and paper is more effective. And there may be brain science that says that yes, writing with a pen and paper is better. You know, I can't speak to that so much, but to resist technology change is to resist progress. Everyone is going to be using tablets and markers, or tablets and stylus and pens, and you're going to be using voice recognition software to speak into devices, right? The means of our communication is changing with technology to make it better and faster. To resist this change because you're uncomfortable with it, that's fine. It's just that you are going to lose out on that advantage. And so it's very important to learn these devices and learn how to use them, and how to use them well versus to resist. So technology should hopefully improve communication if you can use it properly. We're going to take a little bit of a shift here in terms of our communication conversation, and talk more about why is communication so important and such a big deal these days, right? So when you think back in time, it's very difficult for you guys because you live in a fairly diverse area of the world, but before, where things were less diverse and less culturally different, you wouldn't have to worry as much about communication, right? But the world is changing, right? The world has changed, I should say. Globalization and diversity have created many, many communication challenges, right? Not just within our own small communities where we live, but in all likelihood, many of you are going to work for large multinational firms. And the possibility is that you're going to work for a firm, and you might become a boss, or you might have a boss that doesn't even live in the same country as you. You might have teams that live in different parts of the world, right? And it's your job to understand how they communicate, right? It's your job to understand what their cultures are like. Maybe not to know it perfectly, but not to offend, right? And not to do things that are culturally insensitive, right? Globalization, while beautiful and great, is going to create communication challenges that we all have to figure out and deal with, because there is diversity, and to believe that your way is the way and the best way is problematic, right? And so that leads us to a conversation of something called ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism being the tendency to consider one's culture superior to any and all others. Okay, and so I don't know if I want to accuse people of thinking this, right? But you have biases in your brain and in your upbringing and in your culture that's going to make you believe and think that how you do things are better than how others do things, right? And as globalization increases, as diversity increases in our workplaces, in our cities, our countries, our schools, wherever, these ethnocentric ideas are going to come to the forefront more, right? Oh, this is how I do it, and this is a better way, right? That's hugely, conceited, right? You think your culture is superior just because that's what you have grown up with in your entire life, right? This will impact how you communicate between your cultures, right? If you see someone eating a specific food or doing something, and you think that, oh, that's gross, right? You're not. I'm not saying you're ethnocentric. I'm just saying that you lack some of the ability to show some empathy or even show understanding of different cultures, that different cultures exist, right? So that's ethnocentrism in terms of you think your culture may be better in this scenario, right? So I'm not saying we are ethnocentric, but we have those tendencies, knowing and thinking about and doing what we are comfortable with and what we believe, okay? So that concludes this lesson on communication. So I want you to make sure you finish the active listening worksheet today and do a quick read of the quick tips for masterful communication, which will be our next lesson. Thank you.